Bundeswirtschaftsminister Altmaier, die Kommissionsvizepräsidentin Margrethe Vestager und Binnenmarktkommissar Thierry Breton. Wir haben eine Übersetzung in Englisch, Deutsch und Französisch und wir haben Zeit bis 14 Uhr. Ich entschuldige mich für den verzögerten Beginn und bitte Herrn Minister Altmaier gleich zu starten.
Ja, vielen Dank, liebe Margrethe Vestager, lieber Thierry Breton. Das war heute eine sehr wichtige Diskussion mit einem guten Ergebnis. Wir waren alle sehr besorgt und sind sehr besorgt aufgrund der hohen Ausbreitungsgeschwindigkeit der Corona-Pandemie. Wir haben am Rande auch gesprochen über die Resilienz von Lieferketten und dass wir Grenzschließungen vermeiden wollen. Aber wir waren uns vor allen Dingen einig, dass wir auch im Anschluss an die erfolgreiche Bekämpfung der Pandemie ein starkes, ein erfolgreiches Europa brauchen. Und das wird auf Dauer nur möglich sein mit einer starken Industrie und einem starken Binnenmarkt. Die erste wichtige Feststellung ist, dass alle sich einig waren, dass das Anliegen einer starken Industrie nicht im Gegensatz steht zu der digitalen Transformation und zu der grünen Transformation im Hinblick auf den Green Deal und die Klimaneutralität, sondern dass wir beides gemeinsam erreichen wollen. Wir wollen erreichen, dass Europa wirtschaftlich stärker wird und dass wir gleichzeitig in beiden Transformationen erfolgreich sind. Wir waren uns auch einig, dass es keinen Gegensatz gibt zwischen dem Bekenntnis zur sozialen Marktwirtschaft, zu privatem Unternehmertum und zum europäischen Binnenmarkt. Das wird von allen geteilt und von allen unterstützt. Und es ist kein Gegensatz zu der Frage von industriepolitischen Konzepten und Überlegungen, wie sie die Europäische Kommission angestellt hat, wie sie in den Mitgliedstaaten angestellt wurden. Es gab einen großen Konsens darüber, dass es wünschenswert ist, dass Europa auch bei den neuen Industrien der Digitalisierung, Wasserstoff und vielen anderen Telekommunikationstechnologie vorne mit dabei ist und auf dem Weltmarkt konkurrenzfähig bleibt. Wir haben uns über verschiedene Instrumente ausgetauscht. Wir haben insbesondere die Vorschläge der Kommission zur Kenntnis genommen im Hinblick auf ein Level Playing Field, das sich auf Subventionen aus Drittstaaten bezieht. Ich habe diesen Vorschlag ausdrücklich begrüßt und wir haben eine erste sehr wichtige und hilfreiche Aussprache darüber geführt. Ich bin überzeugt, dass dies ein wichtiges Instrument und ein wichtiges Element im weiteren Vorgehen sein wird. Wir werden im nächsten Jahr eine überarbeitete Fassung der europäischen Industriestrategie von der Kommission erhalten. Wir wissen, dass wir in der Zwischenzeit viele Hausaufgaben vor uns haben. Das Instrument der IPCIs, der Important Projects of Common European Interest, die wir bei der Halbleiterproduktion angewendet haben, die wir anwenden bei der Batteriezellproduktion und die im Augenblick diskutiert werden im Hinblick auf Wasserstoff und ähnliche Anwendungen, auf grünen Wasserstoff und ähnliche Anwendungen, werden wir so organisieren, dass sie ausreichend transparent sind und dass sie vor allen Dingen auch für kleinere Mitgliedstaaten und für SMEs attraktiv sind, um daran teilzunehmen. Das ist im Interesse aller Beteiligten, weil nur dann die vollen Synergieeffekte erreicht werden können. Ich habe der Europäischen Kommission, der Executive-Vizepräsidentin Margrethe Vestager, ausdrücklich und explizit noch einmal gedankt für den großen Einsatz bei der Bekämpfung der Covid-19-Pandemie. Die Kommission hat mit ihrem temporären Beihilferahmen, mit ihren vielen Einzelentscheidungen dazu beigetragen, dass die Regeln des Binnenmarktes eingehalten wurden, dass sie aber trotzdem imstande waren, schnell und unbürokratisch zu helfen. Das ist nicht nur von mir, sondern von vielen anderen Rednern begrüßt worden. Und ich habe mich auch bedankt, ausdrücklich bei Thierry Breton, der mit seinen Überlegungen und seinen Vorschlägen zur Schaffung einer europäischen Industriecloud mit dazu beigetragen hat, dass die Entwicklung des gemeinsamen Projektes Gaia X vorangeht und Europa dort stärkt, wo es notwendig ist, nämlich im Bereich der Industrie, die wir in der Europäischen Union heimisch halten wollen. Es gab unter den ganz, ganz vielen Vorschlägen, die gemacht worden sind, auch noch einmal die dringliche Bitte, dass wir bei der Umsetzung des Green Deal dem Thema Carbon Leakage, der Vermeidung von Carbon Leakage einen hohen Stellenwert einräumen, weil ansonsten die Gefahr besteht, dass wichtige Zukunftsinvestitionen nicht mehr in Europa getätigt werden und damit Schäden entstehen, die nur schwer zu beheben sind. Wir waren uns alle einig, dass dies ein wichtiges Element ist und sind auch sehr froh, dass der Vizepräsident Frans Timmermans in diesem Bereich Vorschläge vorlegen wird für einen entsprechenden europäischen Grenzausgleichsmechanismus. Das von meiner Seite. Ich freue mich nun, das Wort an Margarete Vestager und an Thierry Breton weiterzugeben. Bitte schön, Margarete. Wir hören dich nicht. We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. You have to unmute you. Unmute you. Margarete.
Does it work now?
Now I can hear you, yes.
After all these months, and I still make these rookie mistakes. Well, no. Thank you very much for organizing this. It was a very good debate. It was full of nuance. It was full of all the concern and responsibility, but also looking forward to the things that we want to do in order for Europe to remain competitive and to embark on the twin transitions. It was very encouraging because it showed how much member states value the single market, that as a prerequisite of the recovery, that it works in the best possible way. I also very much took to heart the support for the gap analysis in the white paper, that we need a tool in order to address foreign subsidies, but also the nuance in the feedback, because just as well as we want to control foreign subsidies not to unlevel the playing field, just as much we want to welcome foreign direct investment, live up to our international obligations, avoid protectionism, and obviously avoid bureaucratic burdens on the people involved. I think it was very strong because it was from different sides, member states, ministers coming together with a strong message on level playing field, competition, single market playing a very important role, and the willingness to work together where we have, for instance, a market failure to come in and do important projects of common European interest, IPCIs, for instance, on hydrogen. And here, obviously, the Commission stands ready in every respect to help to enable this to happen. So thank you very much for this, Peter.
Thank you. Et maintenant, je donne la parole à Thierry Breton. Cher ami. On t'écoute, on t'entend pas. On t'entend pas. Il faut. You have to unmute you. I mean, this is a good example that all of us, it happens to me as well, by the way, frequently. It's a good example that we have to become better with regard to digitization and high technology. Can you speak louder? No. What can we do?
Dann-
Perhaps we ask journalists if they want to ask questions, and then we come back to Thierry Breton.
Genau.
As soon as the problem is resolved.
Sehr guter Vorschlag. Ich habe hier auch schon Journalistenfragen und beginne mit Bloomberg. Die Frage bezieht sich auf 5G und ich lese sie einfach mal vor. Huawei is being sidelined from certain European markets on 5G. Do you worry that this could harm innovation and competition by creating a duopoly of 5G suppliers in Europe, with Nokia and Ericsson as the two main vendors remaining? Die Frage ist an niemanden spezifisch adressiert. Herr Altmaier, möchten Sie anfangen und dann kann
Well,
sich
yes, of course. Huawei, first of all, is playing quite a substantial role in Europe. It has a large market share, and I've always defended the idea that we have free competition at a global scale, but we are vigilant when it comes to our justified security interests. And whether it is justified to buy equipment from a certain company is decided by the countries and by the companies, by the telecommunication companies. We have a very diverse picture in Europe, and this is, in my eyes, proof that we are not discriminating. But that this is an enormously difficult issue, and as far as my personal position is concerned, I'm not against Huawei, but I believe that under the angle of technological and digital sovereignty, we need also strong European players in this ever more important business.
Frau Kommissionsvizepräsidentin.
Thierry is still in trouble. Margaret, would you like to add something to Huawei?
Thank you. No, this is indeed a very concentrated industry, but that was the case already. And what seems to be happening now is that some of the companies are gaining bigger market shares, but not necessarily on a global field that things as such are changing. I very much agree with what Peter said. It is indeed important that the 5G toolbox is being used so that the fastest possible secure rollout can happen. The rollout of 5G is a very high priority for the Commission. We see this as sort of the industrial backbone of digital Europe, because here in particular, industry will have great help of doing this, just as well as cross-border connectivity will be increasingly helped by 5G. So far, this is our main concern, the speed of the rollout and the security of the rollout.
Peter, I have just...
no, we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Connected on time, just to add a few comments on this very important issue that you know is extremely important for all of us. I just would like to remind one simple thing. We are leading the race in Europe in 5G with two very big companies, and altogether we have the largest market share worldwide in 5G, and we have the largest patent portfolio. So our European companies are extremely lucky to have these strong suppliers to support the very important need of rolling out 5G, especially for our industrial strategy and all our companies. This being said, you mentioned it very clearly, Peter, we are absolutely against no one in Europe. It is not our philosophy. We welcome everybody, but of course, we need to be clear what are our rules in terms of regulation, but also in terms of security, and mainly on this topic, on cyber security. And this is why we have put together, member states, with the support of the Commission, all together, a toolbox, which is a very important tool, where we all share the same concern, and we all have the same view on what we should do in order to avoid any high-risk suppliers. Thank you.
And if you want to make some concluding remarks on our on our video conference, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you. So very quickly again, congratulations. Thanks so much, Peter, for organizing this very, very important debate. Extremely insightful. And especially in the context you mentioned it, unfortunately, we all know that, and we mentioned it many times during our discussion of the second wave of the outbreak that unfortunately we are experiencing. And of course, it is important that all of us remind how the internal single market is important for all our industries, all our companies, all our jobs, but also in this particular situation. And especially, of course, we know that we don't know how the situation will evolve. We are making all extremely important efforts to contain it, but we know that in no circumstances, and it has been reiterated many times, we will allow the border being closed, which could create a dysfunction of the internal market. And I think it was important to remind this, and we all agree on this point. And by the way, another thing that I wanted to mention, which has been highlighted, is the level playing field that we create together. And you mentioned it also, Peter, thanks to our strong European market, single market. And of course, that's important that in the context of the final discussion that we have now, we are our British friend, under the leadership of Michel Barnier. Of course, I think it's important that we can testimony here that not a sheet of cigarette paper comes between us, and that we are totally unified to make sure that our single market is probably one of the most important things that we have. It is a pillar of the resilience of our industry and services, and of course, we are all committed to make it even stronger. One word on strategic economy or strategic autonomy, I must say. So a lot of our colleagues and ministers stressed the need to invest in the innovative capacity of our European industry to accelerate, of course, the digital transition. You mentioned it. And of course, we have been able to reaffirm our common ambition to make Europe a resilient industrial power, and of course, at the forefront of energy and digital transition. We need, of course, to ensure our competitiveness, our technological advantage in the field of data. That's extremely important. You mentioned it en passant, Peter, in terms of cloud, processors, that's extremely important, connectivity, batteries. That's also something which is important. We need to ensure our security of supply of essential commodities, such as raw materials, pharmaceutical ingredients, and so on. And we have already presented a number of initiatives to diversify our sources of supply. And we are working on the mandate by the European Council to map all our strategic dependencies per industrial ecosystems and present proposals on how to reduce them. Margaret spoke a lot about the state aids, and I think it's an extremely important topic, of course. And lastly, I explained the innovative approach that we propose, the ecosystem matrix, to better identify the priority needs of each industrial ecosystem. We are currently working on a complete mapping of the needs and the tools that can be provided, financing, regulatory framework, trade policy, and other instruments to reduce our strategic dependencies, partnership and transversal initiatives such as alliances, which each benefits several industrial ecosystems at the same time. And of course, this mapping will enable us to target our collective efforts where they are needed most without silos. So thank you very much. That's basically, that was my comment. And of course, I'm standing next to you for Q&A.
Vielen Dank. Wir haben hier noch eine Frage, beziehungsweise es sind mehrere Fragen, die sich aber auf ein Thema beziehen, und zwar das IPCEI zum Thema Wasserstoff. Die Frage lautet, von dpa haben wir das zum einen bekommen, welche Bedeutung hat das IPCEI Wasserstoff für die Industrie? Und daran anschließend die Fragen, ich trage es mal auf Englisch vor. Some countries voiced concerns about the grounds for launching new IPCEIs, arguing the evidence of market failure is poorly presented. EVP Vestager, how will the Commission in the future improve on such analysis? Eine Frage von Politico und anschließend daran auch noch an Herrn Altmaier zu den IPCEIs. You have in the past asked the Commission to streamline the approval process of IPCEIs. Have you received reassurances to this end?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we had excellent cooperation and experience with regard to the IPCEI on battery cell production. Everything was examined and also approved within very short delays. So I'm very confident that this will continue with regard to the hydrogen IPCEI as well. It is currently under preparation, and as I have also explained in our video conference, the innovative aspect, the fact that we confine our projects exclusively on highly innovative new projects is, in my view, a good argument that it is really based on the concept of market failure. Margaret.
Well, thank you very much. I think you'd find that that Peter and I are very aligned. You even see that we coordinated the color of the dress and the tie today in order to show the alignment. Because it is indeed so that we find that the level of innovativeness, that is the key. Because in an important project of common European interest, we have access to cover 100% of the funding gap with public funds. And that, of course, something has to come with that. And the first thing is, of course, the innovation. It can be a technological innovation, but it can also be the organization of the use of technology. If you look at the battery IPCEI, you see that it's not only the next generation of batteries, it's also how to organize sort of European-wide the recirculation of batteries so that we produce those that we need and not just a lot of them. And how do we make sure that the materials that goes into batteries is also reused. And I think that's a very good example of sort of the breadth of innovation that we can take on board. And the second thing is that the rules also allow for infrastructure, cross-border infrastructure to be enabled. And I think here, especially when it comes to hydrogen, this is a very good example. And hydrogen also is a good example of what Peter said initially, that there is no contradiction between a strong industrial base and the twin transitions of green and digital. And I think hydrogen is indeed a poster project for that, because hydrogen will enable, for instance, green steel, green cement, actually to be part of the package. And I think also in a green future, we will indeed need both steel and cement to be there with us. And a last, I think, important feature of these projects is that since so much public funding go into that, the benefits are not only for the participating businesses, it is broader, it's for the entire ecosystem, because that is something that we put into the governance model. So I think that is the reflection of the starting point. And the very last thing is, of course, that we are now giving the rules a sort of a quick review to make sure that also smaller businesses with the same sort of innovative DNA, that they can participate just as well, of course, that as every member state is welcome.
Herzlichen Dank. Herzlichen Dank an alle, die teilgenommen haben. Sofern wir Fragen von Journalisten hier jetzt nicht beantworten konnten, bitte ich darum, dass uns die per E-Mail geschickt werden. Wir werden uns dann um die Beantwortung kümmern. Vielen Dank noch einmal und einen schönen Tag.
Et bon week-end à vous tous. À toutes et tous.
Thank you very much and have a nice weekend.